Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Baked HR. I'm Jasmine Wilkes here with my co host, Christina Mingert. Hi, Christina. How are you doing today?
Hey, Jasmine. I am doing well. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good for a Monday, even though, like I said on Twitter, I forgot my computer password and I even forgot my email address this morning. So it's been a Monday, but not one that's pretty bad. So I'll take it.
So, we're recording this on the 18th, the day after you did your Instagram live rant, your very first Baked HR Instagram live rant for us.
Yes.
So, I'm wondering, did that cause you so much stress that that's why you forgot your own email address this morning?
No, I mean, like after that rant, I drank some water and like got in bed and I was done. But I really maybe it was because someone was talking to me when I was trying to like log in, but I was just like, no, that ain't right. Try this way. But you don't want to try too many times because then you get locked out and then you gotta contact IT. I don't want to do all that. But yeah, it was a day.
That's awesome. I love it. So I am excited for us to jump into this one. This is always going to be an ongoing conversation, I think, in the HR space. So I am very eager to jump into your points about this. So let's talk culture fit tonight. I think you are going to kick us off with the definition of culture fit as Mr. Google breaks it down for us.
Yes. So according to Google, culture fit is the concept of screening potential candidates to determine what type of cultural impact they would have on the organization. It is based on the alignment of values, beliefs, and behaviors between the employee and the employer. So, according to Mr. Google, that is what culture fit is all about. And I think um, that is of course correct when we're looking at culture fit, that those are the things that we're looking for. um but I also have a maybe it's a love hate relationship with culture fit. How about you?
So I think I've always had mixed feelings about culture fit. And as a recruiter being asked to hire for the culture, um, I think that it doesn't mean what managers and executives want it to mean.
Mhm.
I think that they believe that Google definition that you just gave us, but rarely is that what's actually like flowing through an organization.
Mhm.
So, uh, if I go and just pick five random people in an organization to call, I think they're all going to give me a different answer.
Mhm.
So I just have a hard time with us trying to put so much emphasis on culture fit and hiring for the culture fit. And I still, even after doing this for 15 years, I still have so many questions. Like even in that definition, it says uh related to the cultural impact that they're going to have in the organization. So I'm like, well, can we break that one down? What does that mean? So when I Google define cultural impact, it is relating to artistic or social pursuits or events considered to be valuable or enlightened, which I think touches on one of your points last night in the rant about when you're talking like the beanbag chairs and nap pods and ping pong tables and air hockey or whatever else. And then the second option is of or relating to a culture or civilization. And so I think it's like a mix of using those two definitions together to kind of pretend like, oh, we're hiring for culture fit. Uh, from a recruiter perspective, I've always wondered, who do you think, when you're making that decision internally at an organization, who do you think that benefits? Does that benefit you as the employer, or does that benefit the candidate so that the candidate can self select out of the process?
If you're asking me,
Does that
it
make sense?
benefits the employer.
So you think it benefits the employer?
Yes.
So I've always, and it's because I come from a recruiter perspective, I think, that I always say, okay, well, the only good that's going to come from me telling you the culture here is that you get to determine if this is a place you want to wake up and come to every day.
Mhm.
Right? So there's the good in sharing the culture fit. But what do you do when your culture is terrible? Do you just tell candidates what you want your culture to be and start recruiting for that? Do you know your culture is terrible? I like Jasmine, I need you to tell me how, let's pick the place we both worked.
Okay.
How would you define their culture?
Um, like the good boy culture. Um, the I don't know, like it's see, this is the
See?
thing. This is the thing
See?
that like a lot of for me, culture fit, while it can be good, a lot of people imagine what their company culture is, what they've put in their mission statement and their values. They imagine that their culture is that, and their culture does not actually align with the values that they've put in place. And then if they do, they also don't acknowledge that for majority of companies who are not for companies that are not, like ran by progressive people, their culture is very stuck and based in um, something that is not great for all people. And by all people, I mean like all races, all genders. So you think your culture is one thing, you think you're accepting and welcoming, and you're truly not.
Definitely not that place, but whatever.
And that's what I'm
Um,
saying. Like if you talk to the higher ups, this is, their culture is, oh, we're a employee owned company. We are, we look out for our people and what they want. And when you go and talk to the real employees that are working for that organization every single day, who are sometimes maybe seeing their upper management or the leaders in the corporate office, it's a completely different story.
well, I don't think that it's just the employees on the ground versus the executive management. I would be willing to bet a large amount of money that I have never worked anywhere that has truly had a company wide defined culture.
Mhm.
I think a lot of times different teams kind of create their own culture, different departments end up creating their own culture, and it can be influenced by the kind of work they do, it can be influenced by the kind of manager they have. I think that at the end of the day, there is a mission statement and a vision statement and some core values of the company that can be implemented company wide. But I don't consider that part the culture. Um, I think it maybe can lay the foundation for good culture, but I don't think, no, very rarely does anyone ever go, like, if you're at a cocktail party and someone says, tell me about your company, do they just like roll into the values, the core values of the company, you know? And so, like, I just don't, while these are important pieces of the puzzle, it's not the whole puzzle.
Uh-huh.
And uh, in your culture, your environment is made up of multiple things and can vary between group to group.
Yeah.
Unless your entire company sits in one place and interacts every day and every manager is the same kind of manager, I just don't think you have a company wide culture. So let's talk about, like, what are some examples you've seen of people using um, culture fit um, in a negative way in the hiring process.
Well, it's negative because they push people out that are highly qualified for it, but it's good for that person who, applied for the job because they wouldn't want to be in a company that was like that. But that's primarily the negative thing that I've seen is that people say, oh, well, we didn't hire John because John he didn't fit the culture of the organization. When truly is, we didn't hire John because John is, he'd be like the fourth Black person we've hired in 10 years. And I don't know if we're ready to make that leap yet.
Oh, I laugh to keep from crying because I know that's true. But here's the deal. Well, and I brought it up, so I'm going to own it. But from the recruiter perspective, I like the idea of creating an option for candidates to self-select out because I don't want anyone to come over to an environment where they're going to be miserable. A lot of times, recruiting is about timing. It's about solving pain points. And let's say that you have a micromanager where you are now, and that is a problem that you want me to solve as a recruiter. That's why you're interested in one of these positions. The work sounds exciting, blah, blah, blah. The pay's all right. But what's at the forefront of your list right now is I have a micromanager and I'm about to lose my mind. Well, I can't in good conscience ask them to come work for us if I know they're going to report to a micromanager. I'm not solving their problem. Okay. You're going to make a huge decision that's going to impact you, your family, if you have a family, everything about your like daily routine, your life, your ability to pay bills, whatever, your lifestyle. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to tell you, listen, this manager's a micromanager. I'm going to wait until another manager gets something open. Let's stay in touch. And I'm going to just be real, right?
Okay. But that
Okay.
makes
So
you a
that's
good
it.
recruiter.
Well, yeah. And not every recruiter is going to do that. So if you're a job seeker watching this, don't think that every recruiter is going to do that. Not everyone is as comfortable as I am putting my job on the line every day because I don't care. You should just know. I'm going to tell you everything I can tell you. But okay, so let's say in your scenario, we don't hire John because he's not a culture fit, because maybe there's a culture test or maybe there's some culture focused interview questions in the interview process. Okay. And he didn't quite match up. Maybe it was something silly like he doesn't like ping pong or whatever it is. Well, we don't think he'd be a good culture fit. But John really needs to pay his bills. And so John doesn't give a shit that everyone else is going to want to play ping pong. He just wants to go to work and use his skills and go home and have dinner with his family, like Nicole. Just the dinner with the family part, not the rest of it. I don't know her job situation right now, so don't get that twisted. Don't get me in trouble there. So you have selected a candidate out of the organization because they weren't a culture fit for something that's not important. So I'm going to give you a little tiny little HR secret, little HR recruiting secret. If you are in the room with decision makers and the reason that they give you for not extending an offer to someone is that they're not a culture fit, I'm going to need you to push them to articulate what that means, to clearly define to you what that means, and then ask them specifically about their ability or inability to do the work, because that's what we should be making hiring decisions on. And I think that there's too much emphasis on this culture thing, and it can get you in trouble. If I hire first of all, if I hire a bunch of people that think like me and work like me and act like me, it's going to be the worst workplace on the fucking planet. Okay, so I probably shouldn't have said that word right there. Jasmine, are you good enough to bleep that yet? We're gonna have to figure out how you do that.
No.
Okay, it's gonna be a terrible environment. And that's an example of why we can't all just talk to each other like that all day, every day, and all of us just be like, we're gonna do what we want. The rules don't apply to us. We're gonna do what we know works best, whatever, blah, blah, blah. We never get anything done. So if that's what culture fit is to me, I'm creating my own problem because I'm bringing in a bunch of me's, and it takes all kinds to get the work done and keep the organization pushing forward and keep new, fresh, creative ideas coming into the organization, right?
Mhm.
But sometimes I guess people don't realize that's what they're creating when they're saying, hey, we want to hire for a culture fit or whatever. And they think that they like to use that as an excuse, like, oh, well, you have to. Okay, let me just put it out there like this.
Mm,
So at a previous job, not this job and not the job we work together,
okay.
I very vividly remember getting someone in the interview process. And actually, the other recruiter recruited this person. It was not me. Getting someone in the interview pipeline process, right?
Mhm.
He comes out, and our interviews were no joke, Jasmine. They were no joke. Like, even new grads were there at least a half a day, depending on how many departments were interested in them. They could be there all day.
Good Lord.
So he's there and he goes through, you start with HR and you end with HR. But the ending with HR is really quick, like a 15-minute, like, hey, here's the next steps, kind of blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
So he gets to maybe the second or third interview, and then he just leaves. And he's just like, I'm sorry. I'm not okay with a company that builds offensive weapon systems.
Okay. All right.
All right. I'll give you that one as a culture fit. Like, if you're not comfortable with what our end goal is, and that's a huge part of it, no foul, that's fine. You're
Mm,
not comfortable with it. There's nothing I can put you on here that's going to remove you far enough away from the fact that we do that to make you feel comfortable.
mhm.
So that's like a culture fit baseline that I would say might have something to do with the job. But most of the stuff that you're coming up with is like, oh, we won't like that we have potluck Thursdays. Well, neither do I, Bob. And I'm here. So whatever. Um, and I think that we should just probably blatantly call it what you just called it. We don't want to hire our fourth Black person. We don't want to make that leap. And so that's when culture fit gets dangerous. You can't use that to screen out people who don't look like you.
Mhm.
Um, you shouldn't want to do that, first of all. Okay. But second of all, that was never really what HR was taking the charge on when they said, hey, we've got to improve culture, we've got to make a culture shift, or we've got to do this and it's good for the organization. It was never about personal culture coming into our culture, right?
Mhm.
It was about creating a work environment that people enjoyed so that they could continue to do good work. So by using that to say, oh, we have to have only a certain type of person, and using that to screen out candidates that are any race other than your race, or any ethnicity other than your ethnicity, or even not the same gender as you, you're using it wrong, and you're going to get yourself in trouble. You're going to get your organization in trouble, and not just like legally in trouble, but like you're you're selling your team short by not being more open-minded and not being more inclusive and not making decisions based on people's ability to do the job. It's got to come back to people's ability to do the job. Now, I don't think that that means that you ignore culture as an organization. I think that there are times where you have got to really run a campaign and improve your culture. In fact, I'm getting ready to do that right now where I am, but not because our culture is bad, but because I've identified a couple of weaknesses in our culture that we can collectively shift and improve. And it's more about respecting each other's time and accountability,
Mhm.
because we will just willy-nilly throw something on the calendar. We will be late. We will take phone calls in the middle of meetings. And so it's more like that. I want our culture to be more respectful of each other's calendar and time while we all try to work really hard to take care of our customers and our employees.
I like that. I think that's the issue where, like you said, a lot of people are looking at culture in the wrong way, and which is why it gets such a bad rep, because culture can be such an amazing thing for an organization to have, especially if you have identified one that really works for all of your employees, not just certain ones. It doesn't have to be a straight standard of, what something is. But I think it's so much of it has gone downhill, and it's been an easy way for people to screen out candidates that they don't want to hire, that they literally can just check a box and say this person was not a culture fit for the organization and be done with it. And um, one, like, in the past, one of the organizations that I've worked with have gotten in the trouble for had gotten in trouble with that, because they hired someone, but then because a person was doing their job, but
Mhm.
also telling the organization what was wrong with it. And upper management and leaders have to be able and willing to receive feedback to know what is going wrong with their culture. They have to be able to get that information back from their employees and say, okay, like, don't create these little, surveys or anything asking, hey, tell us how you really feel about the organization, and then not do anything when the employees actually tell you how they really feel about the organization. And some of it can be small things that you can change. Some of it can be things that you're going to have to say, okay, well, we're going to have to put a plan in place for this. This isn't like an overnight or a 1 month change. So it's going to take more. But one of the big things is upper management is not communicating that they've even received that information from the employees. And so now your employees feel like you're not listening to them or paying attention to the suggestions that they have, but you want them to be all happy and go lucky about the culture of your organization. And that's like, those two things, they're not going to work out for you.
So a couple of points you made. One, first of all, I want to take this back that if you, so we are on the corporate side, right? Pretty much wherever we work, we're on the corporate side. If you can't define the culture at the corporate level, the employees aren't going to be able to define it at all. And that is one of the biggest mistakes I think companies make is they just think, oh, well, employees will tell you what the culture is. You got to tell them what you want the culture to be, and then you gotta give them the resources to make sure that that's the culture that they're in.
And it's not just words. Like, your culture cannot just be, oh, our culture is, um, you know, just certain words, and define that as your culture. Like, that is not a culture. That's you looking in the dictionary for business terms that will work well for your organization.
Business buzzwords. Um, so, and two, leaders, especially the executive team, they have to be open to the idea that maybe they experience the culture differently than the employees experience it. So,
Mhm.
when the employees do have feedback, they need to be willing to hear that. I don't necessarily think that means they always have to agree with the feedback that they get, but to your point, you have to acknowledge the feedback and don't ever do surveys if you're not going to act on them.
Yes.
It's just employees will not participate after a while. Employees will be let down, they'll be disappointed, they'll think that change is coming, and they'll be waiting and waiting and waiting and nothing happens. So if you're not going to do anything with it, then don't do a survey. Just skip the survey altogether. But I think that that's also true of HR professionals. We have to understand that we probably experience the culture a little differently as well.
Mhm.
Sometimes in a good way and sometimes in a bad way. Because a lot of times from where I sit, I see the good and the bad and the ugly of the organization. And I tend to really focus on the ugly, mostly because that's what I want to fix, right?
Mhm.
But I can forget that the person on the other side of the building from me doesn't even know about the bad and the ugly over here sometimes. And so they are just on cloud nine and really are enjoying our culture. And so I think that we just have to be able to have grounded conversations and take into consideration where employees are coming from when they do give us feedback. And more importantly, my goal is for not necessarily for the employees to tell me what they think the culture is or tell me what they're experiencing. I want them to tell the community what they're experiencing. And I want that to be positive.
That is interesting because now that I think about it, I do tend to focus on the bad that I want to change. And like I know, and in all the organizations I've worked in, I've known like the things that did make our culture great. And I knew that employees were happy with certain things, but you get so focused on, but this could be better, that you
Mhm.
don't take the time to really, appreciate that. And that, yeah, I can admit to
I
that.
think that's a fair and not necessarily a mistake that we make, but something that we do. And sometimes we need to be pulled out of it because if we live in only the ugly, we're not going to be happy.
Yeah.
And it's important for us to be happy too, not just our employees. So we just wanted to really get the conversation started tonight. I think we could do several videos about culture fit and maybe how to use it well, how to use it positively, how to break some habits in your organization. The easiest way I think you can do that again is redirect anytime you're part of a conversation that's a hiring decision. Redirect it to their ability or inability to do the work and the proof for it. But we're excited to hear from you all and hear what you think about culture fit, and maybe some good or bad experiences that you have had with culture fit. And Jasmine is going to link to a really old blog post from HR Pockets when she posts this, but I skimmed through it before we worked tonight, and I feel like most of the stuff is still relevant, and most of those same questions that I asked in that blog post I still have today. So we would love to know more about your perspective on culture fit.
Look at Christina creating a series for us. Okay, then now we got some stuff to record. But yeah, so the link to the blog post will be in the description below. You can also always find our information on how to email us if you have questions or topics or suggestions. It will also have the link to our Instagram page at BakedHR that you can definitely go and follow us on. It has been very interesting over on the on the Instagram
It's
page.
been fun. It's been so fun. Jasmine did the best rant. I hope you guys all like avocado toast, and I hope you all tell her
Okay. All right. Okay.
that.
So anyway, make sure you follow, like, and subscribe to our YouTube page, Baked HR, that you're on right now, the Baked HR Instagram. And like I said, if you have questions, comments, something you want to see us talk about, then definitely send us an email at bakedhr@gmail.com. We'll keep this series going. This seems like a good one to get started with. So we'll keep this one going, and we will see you all next time. Bye.
Bye.